Welcome to the Gnarly Girls podcast.
What's up, gnarly beings?
This is a loose-lipped, unfiltered, raw-dogging, stripping down of culture.
No fucks, no panties. This is a labia of love.
We're your hosts, Tony Naj
and Serafina Supernova. And this is Gnarly Girls.
What's up, Sarah?
What's up, Tony?
Today, we're going to talk about how art is grape culture.
It really is. Even in the beginning of trying to record this podcast, we had to start over again because the mics weren't working. And that too is grape culture.
So the thing that I was thinking about is how art is fundamental to our human joy. Art is fundamental to human pleasure. Art is fundamental to human meaning, yet we simultaneously worship it and devalue it.
Yes. Yeah. And it becomes something that's also elite. Like, I think even a lot of artists have a hard time identifying as artists because it's like this thing within capitalism that you have to like earn the title of.
It's commodified and it's also exploited. And the desire to create art is one of the psychological underpinnings of Hollywood, right? And when we look at Hollywood and everything that's happening with these people, the Ozempic, the plastic surgery, the potential baby eating and cannibalism, did they all get together to eat Stanley Kubrick? We don't know. But what we do know is that their desire to be creative and live in the world of artistic play was such a strong desire that they were easily manipulated. And you could argue that there was a call to fame or there was a call to adoration as well. Like, I'm not saying that wasn't a part of it. And I'm not saying that every person that's offered the Hollywood cabal ritualistic worshiping of the Satan god of Baal or whatever the fuck is happening over there. Obviously, not everybody does it. However, if you didn't want it that bad, you wouldn't be manipulated to do that kind of stuff.
I saw someone on Instagram yesterday, a witch, talking about how when she was meditating, she felt Baal come in to her meditation and that he was like, I can make you a famous psychic reader. I can give you everything that you've ever wanted. All you have to do is let me in and basically like merge with me and I will help you. And she said that she considered it. He was like showing her what her life would look like with them working together as like a unified force. And then she said no. And she said that he then just like exited the chat basically of her psychic guide field.
So just to be clear, because I know we're kind of throwing out terms and gods as if everyone knows exactly what we're talking about, but Baal is a god that is a dark god, a demonic, supposedly devilish god that it is said that not only the Hollywood elite worship, but also the political elite as well, or whatever. Elite people don't love that word either. We're trying to find the right verbiage, the overlords, the predator class, what have you. So when this woman, as you're referencing, is talking about Baal coming into her meditation, this is the god that's being worshipped by those forces, just to be clear.
Yeah, and I feel that Baal is akin to the Old Testament Christian God Yahweh. They share a lot of similar qualities. And I mean, I'm not going to go down a demon saint rant right now, even though I could. But I do think it's interesting how much magic intersects with art in like a very real non-woo-woo way. And even when it comes to our work together and doing grape culture, Tony and I are always casting spells to the point where last time we cast a pretty intense spell. Granted, I have a high histamine reaction, but I got 2 bites of black flies on each shoulder because I had to give blood to the land in order for the spell to manifest, and I kept hearing the bites that bind, and it's sort of been like an intrusive now reoccurring message for like the last 3 weeks, and I'm like, I do feel bound to the spell that we cast actually. And magic is a part of art.
Yeah, and I want to go deeper into that because if we were to look at just Western philosophy, which would not be considered to be that esoteric or metaphysical, but what Western philosophy and Plato, Socrates, etc., they all thought that the artistic impulse was the muse. And no one really questioned this. And the muse was something that came through you. And I do think like Jungian psychology would talk about the collective consciousness. So the implication being is that there are ideas and ideas of creative expression that exist within the collective. And the question is who is the antenna of which to broadcast the message. But the message exists in the collective, and that message, I think, is personified by the idea of the muse, the creative muse in Greek mythology or Greek religion, we should really say. And that was just considered a philosophical fact that was not questioned, you know? And I think there's something interesting. I know Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this, who I have mixed feelings about, but she kind of talks about the muse as something that helps her relinquish the idea of attachment to her work. And then you're not holding on to the same responsibility of either praise, adoration, and or criticism, which I have mixed feelings about, but I do think it's an interesting thing to explore.
Well, two things are coming up, and this brings me back to I feel like you had this conversation on your podcast, Come Inside of Me. I feel like we were in this conversation in Portland when we were just doing our last Grape Culture tour. Um, there's something about returning to the intention and updating it. And even if at one point we had an intention to make art to serve the collective, to like continuously tap back in and be like, oh, right, I'm doing this work in order to serve a larger healing purpose versus, and not to say that we can't do work just for our own healing journey and then it can't become something that then serves the collective. Like that's not what I'm saying, but I do think it like helps the ego let go and it helps you actually create what you're being called to create when you're not like I'm creating this art in order to be seen, in order to grow my following, in order to it's like we always with grape culture are having to return to, and I feel like I really was in a meditation around this week. The point is healing. The point
Yeah.
is spiritual awakening. That's the point. And like of course we get healings and spiritual awakenings when we make art that's impactful, but I think the way to like meet the fact that art culture is grape culture is to continuously reinvestigate what the intention is and connect that back to a larger purpose outside of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the business of art is incredibly complicated and corrupt. And, you know, for example, you have, I'll just tell you my personal experiences with, I think, corruption within art, you know, beyond what we know about literally people potentially, maybe it's metaphoric, either they're potentially positively, metaphorically, or literally selling their souls, right? I mean, that is the conversation that I think people are questioning. And of course, we've been questioning it for a while on the fringes, but now people are really questioning it.
Yeah.
And when we have, you know, the kind of like public conversation around people eating that obviously come inside of me is
The people eating
iconic
podcast.
in its referencing of people eating, but I do think that I keep talking about people eating because it's not casual to eat a fucking person. And oh, go ahead.
We intersect because I was just in your website brain this morning of you have a comedy show coming up that specifically centers people eating. Would you like to tell the people about that?
Oh my God, this is what's so funny about that. I was trying to think of a name of a show because I'm bringing a show to LA. And I was like, I got to do two separate shows because if people want to come to this, if people want to come to both shows, I want to have two shows for them. Um, so one show I'm calling That Was Not a Microdose. But the other show, I was like talking to my friend. I'm like, God, I need a title for the show. And she's like, well, what have you been talking about? Like, what have you been making videos about? And I'm like, people eating. I'm like, I'm in the people eating algorithm. And she was like, that's a cool name for a show. And I didn't even realize I meant it, the people eating algorithm, as I'm in an algorithm talking about people eating, and I'm also talking about people eating, but also the hominin or the not homonym, but the one double meaning, the double entendre is the algorithm is the people eating algorithm. The algorithm is eating the people.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I kind of like had this moment. I had already named the show, and then I was like, "Oh my God, it has two meanings!" Like, what am I, a fucking genius? You know?
I mean,
I was so
yeah.
impressed with myself. Um, Okay, but for example, I'm always talking. So people, we know the extremity of people selling their souls and potentially eating other people in order to get what they want within this, like this infrastructure of Hollywood. Okay, that's an extreme sense. But the desperation that I think is so deeply entwined with art, like so, for example, just to like talk about desperation for a second. I had a workshop on in Williams, Oregon, and Sarah's done this with me before. I sometimes do this in workshops where it's an exploration of unconditional love, and I ask like half the room to make the ugliest faces that they possibly can, to make the ugliest shapes with their body that they can, while maintaining eye contact with the other half of the room, and that other half of the room is sending them unconditional love. So while you are at your ugliest, you are getting the somatic imprint of still being loved unconditionally by this other half of the group. It's an exploration of that. It is not an easy practice. I think that like a lot of people struggle with it in a variety of ways. But when I was doing it most recently, I was like trying to kind of think about what is the ugliest thing that I can be doing, or like what's the ugliest energy that I can be projecting right now. And desperation came up, like there is a desperation, and I was recognizing like desperation is both the poison of art, right, because it's repellent, but it's also the engine, because there is a desperation that's kind of driving me forward. They felt very connected. Like I wouldn't just say my desperation is the same energy. And I mean, I think it's like talking about how energy has two faces. All energy has two faces. Like anxiety is anxious and it's excitement. It's the same. Excitement and anxiety is kind of the similar feeling, but which is what one has more of a pleasure overtone, one has more of a pain overtone. Um, so I was thinking the same thing with desperation. It's kind of got this like two overtones of what drives me and what repels people from me, both. And I think that desperation is why artistic people who want that to be their life are so easily fucking taken advantage of, manipulated. I mean, I could write a 50-page essay on this, but one thing I was thinking about was like film festivals. So there's only like two film festivals in this country that matter, maybe three, you know, Tribeca, Sundance, and what's the other one? Telluride. The other ones don't really matter. Like me, I don't know, maybe Slam Dance, but I don't think so. I don't know, it's hard to say. But there's thousands of film festivals that you can apply to. You can spend your money to apply, then you spend your money to go. If you get in, you spend your money there, and it's like this like economy, but it's not going to propel your career in any way, but you think it might. So there's this like economic system that's like driving people because they think there's going to be an outcome that is like not. It's almost like American Idol. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, you give Kelly Clarkson a kind of like a fame pedestal, and then you never really need to do that again. And sure, there were some people that were like sort of famous, or from American Idol, but they like invested in Kelly Clarkson because the illusion of American Idol being successful was important. Like The Voice, like I don't, no one, everyone like watched The Voice, but then whatever happened to all those people? Nobody fucking knows or cares. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that kind of exploitation where you're investing in things that are a circle jerk basically, but you're doing it because you think it's like going to be your golden ticket.
And it's interesting to like look at festival culture across different artistic mediums and also look at how much, networking is a part of it, which means you have to go out and you have to consume alcohol to network. If you are a neurodivergent sober person, you are just going to want to gouge your eyes out with a knife. Like it is the most awful thing to do ever
Really
because
hard.
it's not even like you're a sober person with other sober people just like fucking around and people aren't like smoking weed and shooting the shit at these festivals. They're drinking cocktails and it's emboldening people to be able to make connections and do these things. And like even that, even alcohol as its like own siphoning force, like all of it comes back to like the money, the siphoning, the sucking, and the consumption.
Yeah.
And you really have to like be available, be available, be available. Which I think for a lot of artists, we're already like, in order to be an artist that even has something interesting to say, you do have to, as you like spoke to, be available to the muse and the energy to move through you. And I think that really gets confused with giving access to you, like
Mm.
to other people to you versus like access to source to move through you to make the art. But for me at least, I'm still in a practice of like what is the difference between those two things, like giving access to a person versus giving access to energy to move through in order to like serve what's being created.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying about this like concept of networking, which has always been incredibly difficult for me because for one, I feel uncomfortable kissing ass. It's like not really my I don't really thrive in that, like someone you want something from someone, they know you want something from them, and there's this whole like song and dance that you're doing. That's not really my vibe. The neurodivergo sober fucking vibes, and also like men, being like, are we kind of fucking? Are we not fucking? Like, it doesn't even have to be explicitly aggressive grape, but it's coercive grape because it's like, well, I'm interested if you were fucking, what do I care? That and I remember one of them like we referenced the hotel room thing. I don't know if we've
I was
talked about
just
this on the
thinking this.
pod.
I don't think so.
Okay, so in the hotel room, we talk about this in grape culture, like being invited to a hotel room of someone who's more powerful than you, who's older than you, who says that they can help you and want to help you and they like your career and yada yada. So you kind of like go to the hotel room because you want something to happen with your career and you're thinking like, at least for me, I'm not on why I'm saying you. I thought, oh, um maybe he is tired, like he was traveling a lot. Maybe he was just wants to relax in the hotel room because he's traveling again. And maybe he does just want to like talk about my career because that is what we came to talk about. And like that was the pretense. It was never like not that. It was always, oh, I'm just tired. We could go to this party, this after party with like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and all these people, but I'm tired. So let's just like go back to my hotel room, but we'll talk about your career. Okay, So I find myself in the hotel room and then I realize like, which was upsetting how to realize this because he like caressed my eyebrow. And I was like, oh, dude. I was like, oh. And then you're kind of like, fuck, I really wanted to talk about my career. I really wanted to talk about my career. And so we kind of like had this little song and dance where I was trying to preserve his dignity and be like, act like this was something he'd never done before. So I was like, oh, but you're married. And like, I think like you would really regret it. And I just like, I want to look out for your best interest. So I just like kind of did this whole thing around acting as if I thought this was not like the status quo for him. Then, as we're kind of like in this conversation, a mouse is in his hotel room. And I am not afraid of mice, okay? Like I live in the country. In my house, I am the person that catches the live animals. My husband or my kid has to catch the dead ones, gather. I can't handle a dead animal. It's really hard for me, but I've caught flying squirrels. I've caught birds. I've caught all sorts of animals. So I could have easily caught this mouse, and not been afraid. But he was afraid of the mouse, and so I was like, okay. And so he was like, I gotta switch rooms. I can't be in this like mouse house. And so when we switched rooms is when I left.
Did you feel like you could have left if the room had not been switcherooed?
I did not feel like in danger, but I felt like I was trying to preserve a relationship that was potentially beneficial to my career. So I didn't feel like in physical danger. No, but I felt like, fuck, And is it possible to still like get something, like from this relationship that's work related and not get something out of it that isn't reciprocal to like just renegotiate the relationship. So, long story long, this guy and I basically get on the phone and or maybe this was the next time he was in New York and he asked me to come back and it was like another like I think I'm trying to remember if this was in person. If there's like another hotel room scene, it could have been. I don't fucking know. But what I remember being said to me, either on the phone or in person, was you feminists don't get it. You don't get it. Everybody has a script. Everybody has this. Everybody has that. Like, he basically was also telling me that I needed to study Madonna. He was like, if you want to be successful, you need to study Madonna because she basically fucked the right people to get where she was. That's what he was saying. And he was like, you feminists don't get it. Your script is not that interesting. Your work is not that interesting. Everybody has interesting work, which I was like, oh, that's not wrong. He's like, everyone has interesting work. He says, I would never be where I am today if I didn't fuck so and so. So definitely, saying I fucked so and so, look at the opportunities it gave me. So then he was like, he's like, you feminists are so he's kind of like you're so self-righteous and you're not gonna realize any of this until you're too old and nobody wants to fuck you anymore. And I was like, I think I'm gonna be like a baddie. I am like, I think I'm like kind of always gonna be kind of a vibe. I was kind of like, all right. I'm like, I think I'm all right on that front. But um, I kind of like thought like I was like, he gave me something to think about, you know what I mean? And I remember being like, damn, is this dude right? Because I do think that talent is very common. I think talent's very ubiquitous. Like I think a lot of people are really fucking talented. I really do. And it's like this I've talked about this I think on videos or maybe one pod, but like the scarcity model of Hollywood is a strategy. It's an economic strategy. So you create false scarcity as if there's only so many Meryl Streeps, there's only so many this. And it's like absolutely not true. There's so much talent. You can throw a rock at talent. It's like there's so many good dancers, there's so many good singers, there's so many good artists out there. But you create false scarcity in order to like hype up the value. And I was kind of like thinking about what he said, and I was like, well, damn, like there are so many people who want what I want, which is like a TV show, a sketch comedy show, this, that. I really wanted a sketch comedy show at the time. That's what I was looking to do. And I was like, yeah, like why me and why not someone else? Why not the person that fucking gives you a blowjob? So then this is when we got on the phone. I'm sure was on the phone. And I was like, you know what, man? Like, my problem with all this, I'm like, I'm not even disagreeing with you, but it's not like you handed me a fucking contract and was like, all right, a hand job gets you a meeting with Ben Stiller, a blow job gets you a meeting with this. Like, you didn't specify what you wanted and what you were giving. So that was also, it's like you're asking me to like from a business terms, you're asking me to do all the upfront costs, like based on a wish and a dream that you're gonna fucking hook my ass up. And like, granted, did I know at that moment of having that, I wasn't even offering that, like, I'm down to do that. But I'm saying that, like, the fact that that wasn't even the conversation, the level of indirectness was also the fucking problem. And I wasn't speaking about this in terms of like grape culture in the moment, but I was feeling it in terms of grape culture. And I was like, if you're going to want this shit from me, I want a full contract, like not really, but like that would be what should be. If you're gonna be doing this, like it should be in writing. Anyway, it was like truly 2 weeks later that Harvey Weinstein, and I was like, oh, okay, like that actually is how it is. Like he was not, he was actually telling me the truth of like this is how it is. This isn't like this guy kind of like trying to manipulate me and hyperbole. Like this is exactly how it is. And that's just, he was just telling me how it was, you know? Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And I have like 17,000 things to say. First of all, what a Capricorn to be like, at least give me a contract.
I
Second of
know, right?
all, sex work is work. Third of all, I think most of these dudes in the art world and in my direct experience aren't ever actually intending on providing any sort of opportunity or connection. And my husband and
But
I have been
sometimes they
listening
are, but sometimes they are.
sometimes. But I think not all the time. And that's also what they hide behind is sometimes they are, but because it's so a part of the culture that like they also don't have to because they can also just get fucked and get a blowjob and get whatever. Also,
Yeah,
I've been
but
listening.
like I know a guy, sorry to interrupt you, but like he was a producer and he was the assistant to a very famous director. And we were talking, and this is a long time ago. This is almost like 20 years ago or something. But he was like, yeah, like he said it pretty nonchalantly. Like he was fucking this girl who I thought was hot as fuck, right? And I was like, damn, I love that girl. I think she's so hot, you know? And he was like, yeah, basically like I think she saw it too. I kind of promised her a role in the film.
Yeah.
And
Like,
and she got it. She got
yeah.
the role, you know?
Yeah.
And like that, so that also does
It
genuinely
does
happen.
happen. Yeah. Um, I have also been listening to Madonna's like entire retrospect and story, and like, yeah, she did fuck a lot of people, but also like the conception of the most, like, some of the most famous, powerful women and what they did to get there. I feel like their story is like repackaged and retold and resold to us so that we will walk in like the false story footsteps of the women who came before us. Anyways, the other piece I wanted to say is, I feel like this is making me want to reference our episode micro grape versus macro grape and how we
Mhm.
talk about like the different ways that you can intercept grape culture. I think a lot of times because people maybe in your experience not understanding like grape culture in general or maybe have gaslighted themselves out of abuse they've survived would like not even like think of the eyebrow touch as like it just wouldn't even register. Like I could see that for myself in my most like traumatized phase. Like that wouldn't have even been enough to tip me off. But like that's
Oh,
fucked
it was
up and
happening.
inappropriate.
No, it was that was the beginning, you know, that was
Yeah,
like testing the
yeah,
waters of
yeah.
like, are we doing this?
I probably my issue is I wouldn't have even noticed that 10 years ago probably. And when I
Mm.
was brought to a hotel room by an artist who told me he wanted to give me an opportunity, and I do talk about this in grape culture, he physically held me on a couch down by my neck. And I, for whatever reason, I don't like return to the terror of that moment often, but when you were just telling that story, I was like, yeah, I was actually so scared. Like, I was more scared of being graped in that moment than the times that I had been graped in the past because the times I had been graped in the past, there were drugs and like roofies and like brownout situations involved. So, like, this, I was like completely coherent and sober and actually able to touch the fear.
Yeah.
And I think like that is also something that is weaponized within the art world. Like he definitely wanted me to be scared and on my toes. And even before that, there was so much grooming, which I also think is a part of the grape culture of art culture, the grooming that happens in order to even be able to put someone in that position. And I was 20 years old, 21 at the time, something like that. So, you know, granted like in a different brain space and brain state, but
Yeah, no,
the
I mean,
fear is real.
tell a little bit about the grooming that he did.
So he was invited to come to my school as a visiting artist by my professors, who I deeply respected. Like I had a great college experience. I loved my professors. I was very close with them. And I really trusted them. And I was really like, my school also was very about the business of art. Like Savannah College of Art and Design, which is where I went for undergrad, is literally called the University for Creative Careers. So
Yeah.
they were always bringing in business and visiting artists and professionals out in the world to mentor us and look at our portfolios and all these things. So being the go-getter Capricorn, stellium top of my class, annoying ass smart bitch that I am, when I found out this photographer was coming, I knew that he was only going to review the seniors' work. I think I was a junior at the time, but he was like slotted for the seniors. But because he was a documentary photographer, he worked in black and white film. I just found his work to be really fascinating. I was like, I'm going to reach out independently, like find his email on his website, send him an email, and ask if while he is in Savannah, he can review my work. And so I send him my portfolio. I, reference his work, whatever, very professional, trying to like blah blah blah. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, like let's get on a Skype call to talk about your portfolio before I come to Savannah. And then maybe when I'm in Savannah, you can like drive me around and like I can take some photos and we can like look at your portfolio in that time, whatever." So I was like, "Yes, I'm gonna be this like famous artist chauffeur. I'm getting a free Zoom meeting." Like I was lit. And I was like so proud I did it by myself. I didn't need my professors. I was like, I'm going to be in the business of art, bitch. And so we get on this Zoom call, and I had just started dating my now husband at the time, truly like a couple months before. And ironically, the grape culture of it all, I had been cleaning his bedroom because it was too messy for me to sleep in. And I was like, I must clean this man's like gross ass bedroom so I can spend the night here. So I didn't make it back to my apartment in time to have the meeting. So I was like, I'm just going to have it at his desk. I just cleaned this room. It's clean. He won't fucking know where I am. And so somehow, and predators are very perceptive. I think this is the other thing people don't really like think about when it comes to grape culture. Like predators aren't dumb. They're smart, they're intuitive, they're pretty psychic. Like they have to be using their sixth senses, if you will, in order to be able to like find their prey. So he just like immediately somehow knew I wasn't in my apartment and he was like, "Where are you?"
Whoa.
And I was like, I'm at my boyfriend's house. I wasn't able to make it home in time, but like it's just me in this room and the door is closed." And he was like, "I told you that you needed to be alone for this meeting in your apartment. You really fucked up this opportunity for yourself. I actually thought your work was really good, but now I know that you can't be trusted." And he basically like hung up the phone. Like
Whoa.
this, it wasn't even Zoom at that time. It was Skype because this was like back in the day. And so I was like, of course, I'm like crying. I'm freaking out. My now husband, then boyfriend is like consoling me. He's like, "You'll figure it out. Like there's other visiting artists coming." And I'm like, I ruined my career. And they want you to feel that way, right? They want you to feel desperate. You are groomed to be fucking desperate in the business of art. So the next day, I think I sent him an email and I apologized and it was just like a quick little like, "I'm so sorry." Me and my fucking apologizing. I'm still working on it. So he called me the next day. He like emails me back. He's like, "Let's hop on a quick phone call. Like I'm down to give you one more chance vibes." I can like see where I'm standing. I was like standing outside my fucking apartment on the phone, like shaking in my boots. And he was like, "I decided," and now like being a sex worker, knowing BDSM culture, like knowing predators
Yeah,
more,
it
studying
sounds
rape
very
culture, very
BDSM.
dom, very BDSM, very like unethical dom energy, dom sub energy, unethical non-consensual BDSM vibes, which like I can also get down with. And I think that they do not the non-ethical part, but like BDSM and like sub dom stuff. And I'm very switchy in that. Ironically, now a professional dominatrix, sort of, kind of. But he could tell like, oh, this girl is submissive and codependent and has trauma, and also is like very eager to please, which is like very subby. And so he was like, "I decided that I'm gonna give you one more chance." And I don't like exactly remember like verbatim what he said, but the agreement was that from now on, anytime that we talked, I needed to be alone and I needed to take this mentorship seriously because I was being chosen. I was being chosen and given the opportunity. So I better not fuck it up because I'm being chosen. And I'm so lucky that I was chosen like a needle out of a fucking haystack. Fast forward, I find out like years later that there was like 6 other girls in my cohort, women, young women, that I've actually been meaning to contact. And I've thought about a couple times just like in our grape culture realms of being like, I should like reach out to these women and we should like talk or like do something or I don't even know. But there were other women that he targeted that were also similar. Like we all made different work, but when I think and feel them, like we're all kind of witchy, pretty, like spiritual, like you can like feel the juiciness of our hearts vibes. So
Mhm.
he ends up coming to Savannah. I end up driving him around. He does make photos. He does give me some mentorship. That's always the part of this too, right? Like it sounds like this guy actually had connections to people like Dave Chappelle, like whoever else. Like this guy actually was then mentoring me in like how to make a really good, interesting photograph. So like these predators are also multifaceted. I think especially artistic predators, because they're confused and they've been preyed on, and what are all the things we've talked about on grape culture, in on gnarly girls, and we talk about in grape culture. So he then comes to the opening of this gallery, and I'm ironically being honored with like the presidential award, and my like
We
photo was
don't, I feel like that whole part where he told you to take a photograph of yourself every day needs to be
that
told.
wasn't yet. This was
Okay.
after.
Okay.
This was after. So that, yeah, this is a photo. I'm like, how do I tell this story in the most concise, relevant way to our listeners? Um, Goddess, please help me. Muse, please move through me so I don't grape our audience with this story. Um, so I'm honored in this gallery. My mom's there. Max rolls up, my husband, my boyfriend at the time, and he actually, I remember he was like working at the health food store and he had to like bike across town to like get to the gallery on time. And he showed up like all sweaty and disheveled. And I remember this man being like, "That's your boyfriend?" Like that was definitely his vibe. And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "That's what he's wearing." And he showed up late. Like, sort of like definitely trying to, like, again, it's like the grooming. Like, you could
Yeah.
do better.
Mhm.
So we like are standing in front of my big photo. We take a picture together, and then all of these artists, like a photographer who had won the Guggenheim that year, a couple of other like really notable photographers, they had all come because like SCAD has a pretty big pull and lots of money, and so they were all meeting at this like fancy hotel bar, and he was like, "You should come, and I'll introduce you to all these photographers." So I tell my mom, I was like staying with my mom in a hotel room, even though I had an apartment. She was like, "Stay with me." So I was staying with her. And I'm like, "Mom, I'm gonna go like meet this mentor, at this hotel and this bar to network." She's like, "Okay, please be careful. You are 20 years old, but okay, or 21, whatever." I think I was 21. Um, and so I get to the hotel, I get to the lobby, I text him. He's not in the lobby. I see all the other photographers that I actually really want to meet at the bar, like a fucking mirage in the desert. And he's like, "Oh, I'm actually just taking a rest in my room. Get on the elevator and come up to this hotel room." And like you feel the feelings. We talk about this in grape culture. It's like, do you have a weird feeling about it? Like, yeah, but you like really want what's being offered on a career level and you work so hard as an artist. And I was like this far in. I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna go. This guy's a good artist. He has good intentions. I'm gonna be okay. And then truly probably within a minute and a half of me like sitting down on the couch, he was to the left of me and he like put his body on top of me and like pushed me down and like had his hands, trigger warning for people if you're watching the video or even listening, like this might bring up something. He put his hand on my neck and like held me down like this with his body behind me, like he was spooning me. And I could like, it was like it was a fancy room, so it was like a living room and I could see the bed. Like he had my face directed at the bed. And he just started saying all kinds of like nasty, crazy shit in my ear. But the one notable thing that I remember, he was like, "I'm going to take you in that bedroom and make you come like the dirty little slut that I know that you are." And like honestly, like I am a dirty little slut, but only when it's a consensual agreement and not with some washed up fucking 60-year-old man or 55 or however fucking old he is with all his skull rings on his hands thinking he's so, his leather jacket. Like it's not even like he wasn't attractive. I'm just like, you could literally be my grandfather, sir. Like what the fuck are you talking
Yeah.
about? And this became like, okay, well let me finish that part. So he has me down by my neck And he can tell I'm not into it. And I like was like rigor mortis, like my whole body was frozen. But in my head, and like in these moments, if you're a survivor of this kind of abuse, you're just circling through like, what do I do? What do I say? The fact that the fucking mouse was in the room, like that is
Yeah.
goddess herself, like coming through to just like distract. I like felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, and I was like, okay, he met my mom, he knows my mom is here, you're just like doing fucking math real quick, because I was like, this guy could literally grape me right now, like he is 3 times my size, and now I'm fucking in fight or flight. And so I was like, oh, I just felt my phone vibrate. That must be my mom calling me to check in on me. I told her the hotel that I was going to, she might be in the lobby wanting to meet you.
Smart.
Yeah. And this was like, I was like, damn, I think like in that moment I was like, I am a clever little cunt. And I like, he like sits up because I think he got nervous, and I sat up and I was like, I'm just gonna go down and like check if she's there, I'll like be back basically. And then I
Yeah.
left, and I didn't come back. And my
Yeah.
mom was sleeping actually when I got home to the hotel room, and I remember crawling into bed with her. Like I couldn't even shower, I couldn't drink water, I couldn't like do anything, and I just like laid there and I stared at the ceiling. And then the next morning, we went to breakfast with Max, my husband, boyfriend at the time, and my mom, and they were like talking. And I just remember being in this like cloudy haze where I felt like so ashamed. Like I was like, I should have told Max that I was going to the hotel room. I should have told my mom that I kind of had a sense this guy was creepy. Like this is my fault. I fucked up. I shouldn't have put myself in that situation. I should have known better. And I truly stayed in that like shame spiral for like 2 years. It took me
Mm.
2 years. And then the reason that I finally ended up telling Max was because Brock Turner and the Stanford swimmer stuff happened. And this guy posted a Facebook status because he was like a self-proclaimed like liberal Democrat, whatever the fuck. And he was like, we need to vote for Hillary and teach our boys to be better. And so we need to really, look at the way that men and boys get away with treating women like this. This is disgraceful. And he did have this and does have this continue to this day. I've looked at his Facebook recently, has a reputation of being like a feminist, essentially, and
Yeah.
like a very progressive activist. So seeing that and seeing all these women be like, we need more men like you, had me be like, I gotta just call Max and I gotta tell him what the fuck happened. And I told Max, and this is like the moment I pretty much knew. I was like, I think I'm gonna fucking marry this guy. He was like, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. That's disgraceful. This is your story to tell. And I think you need to pivot your entire thesis and make work about this. Because I wasn't making work about that at the time. And so that was the beginning of making work about grape culture. And the abuse did continue after the hotel room because trauma, because grape culture is confusing, because when you want opportunities you will be fucking the most desperate version of yourself. And so even after that thing happened, he like reached out to me and continued the grooming, and he was like, I have a really, and I think that's what they always do, once they do something fucked up, then they offer you an opportunity to like mentally distract you. So there was this really prominent photo magazine, it still is now, but at the time called PDN magazine, and he was an editor for it. And there was like a student section where you could basically like get chosen out of all these people, again with the chosen, to have like a full spread of your work. And it was supposed to like get you not only into like the best grad school programs, but also like opportunities in galleries in New York City and LA and across the world. And he was like, I think you're a self-portrait artist. Also, he wasn't wrong. He was like, I think you're actually supposed to be making work about yourself. I want you to do a photo project where you take a photo of yourself every 5 minutes for 24 hours. And then we're going to go through those photos and curate them. And we're going to put them up on the website. And you're basically going to get the spread for like the student. Like, I'm choosing you. I'm choosing you out of all the people at SCAD and NYU and RISD and Tufts and all these other fucking schools to like be the one. I've been touring schools and you're the one. So I was like, okay. And he was like, I really want these photos to be raw. No censorship. Like, you need to have your face, your body, like you need to like not be worried about looking pretty. I just want like your real raw self, and it has to be of you, not things that you're seeing. So I did it. And like some of the photos, like of course when you're a fucking 20-year-old girl, like anything is hot. Like your fucking knee is hot. So then he got all of these photos, and of course Nothing happened. But he wanted to have all these meetings about curating them and choosing the photos. And then I think the moment that it really turned for me, it should have been the hand on my neck in the hotel room. But he asked me to stand up when we were Skyping and turn around so he could like see what I was wearing. And this is where it's like the unethical Dom sub relationship, especially with all like the skull rings on his hands. He was like, every time I was like, I don't want to do that. And he was like, every time that we talk, you do what I say you're going to do, and you're going to do that. And this is our agreement. You do what I tell you to do. And so I think I did like stand up and like turn in a circle and then like sit back down. And then he was like, tonight or tomorrow night or whatever, he was like, we're going to meet and you're going to masturbate for me and you're going to have your camera on and I'm going to have my camera off. And I'm basically going to teach you how to self-pleasure, because at that point I'd also like never had an orgasm, and I think I was like maybe beginning to think about making work about the body, and that was like coming through. Maybe he asked me if I'd ever had an orgasm. Like these are also the weird territories you get in with like art mentors, because everything is art and you are the art, so nothing is off limits, and they're kind of also a therapist and whatever. So I was supposed to get on Skype and do this. And I just was like, I can't. Like, I literally, first of all, I can't even masturbate by myself. At that point, I couldn't even touch my own body. I hadn't started a masturbation practice, and I was like, I just can't do this with this man. And I happened to see like a couple of my high school friends that day at an event, and there was something about like seeing them and like seeing my high school self reflected in them where I was like, I can't do this to this like 16-year-old girl. Like, I know that this is part of the business of art, and like this is how I'm gonna like get ahead, but like this just doesn't feel right. So then he started telling me that I was like, I can't do this, and he was like, that's fine. But then he started asking me to delete all of our messages. So then everything that we say will be private between each other. But I actually just never deleted the messages, and I still have them to this day. And I ended up printing them all out and putting them on a gallery wall as a part of my thesis work. And I feel like that needs to like make its way back, because even the messages themselves are like a study in the psychology of the predator, especially
Yeah.
when it comes to grooming young women. Like, of course, this wouldn't happen to me now, but like, I'm not going to say grapey shit hasn't happened to me and doesn't continue to, because it does. But then you just develop more context as a, we hate the word survivor because it just isn't, it doesn't even like give the weight of what it is to survive this shit. But like, when you're a survivor, like, you just have more context and then you proceed forward differently. But, anyways, that is my story of the grape culture of art and the business of art.
Yeah.
One of many.
One of many.
Two hotel room situations for y'all. And also, I bring it back to micro versus macro grape, because what happened to both of us was like equally fucked, just in a different depth of like vulnerability and age and dynamics. And like, you were at like a higher level of opportunity and playing in like a bigger pond. I was in like a smaller pond and younger. But still, this is where it's like, we need to investigate the whole fucking spectrum constantly.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, worth noting is how, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, but the entire business and system of actual physical domination that happens to children and happens to people is protected by assistants, by lawyers, by accountants, by a whole industry and a community of people who know what's going on. Like, people knew what was going on with Cosby. People knew what was going on with Weinstein. These are all like open secrets.
Yeah.
And I was also learning about like Courtney Love, and how Courtney Love's father was really tied into the Epstein world, and how Courtney Love was tied into Epstein. So, and then I think about how strange it is that we have this like collective art created by grape culture, and how that's infiltrating our psyche, how that's infiltrating our cells. Like, you know, Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin, but Jimmy Page was like literally raping a 13-year-old girl. Like, cool, cool, cool. So did David Bowie. Great. So did a Prince, also had a really he impregnated a young girl who's like, I think 16, and then he was abusive to women. It's like you almost can't to navigate an artist that has become popularized who hasn't participated in the exploitation of other humans is almost impossible. Not to say that like everyone kind of like on the spectrum, you know, has complicated relationship to other humans, of course, but the level that is facilitated and expected and supported by these artists in the mainstream, and then how all of that is our basic, like, think about the movie quotes, think about the song quotes, think about TV quotes. Like, this is our imagination. Our imagination is shaped by those who participate actively or have been forced to participate actively in Grape.
I'm thinking about the song that I love, but so grapey. Oh, I'm on fire.
No, that's one of my favorite songs.
Hey, little girl, is your daddy home? I mean, it's so good, but what the fuck?
And he means your boyfriend.
Yeah, but
He doesn't
still.
mean your daddy because he goes, hey, little girl, is your daddy home? Did he go and leave you all alone? I got a bad desire, right?
Yeah,
Um, like because he says, "Let me know if he's been good to you," because
yeah.
it's obviously a boyfriend, but still,
It doesn't hit right in Epstein land.
no. But one of my favorite songs.
Same. It's a great song.
Um, I think the other thing that we should talk about before we get off, is it's like the financial exploitation that is the art world that is really complicated. So, you're a touring artist. What does that look like? If you don't have the institutional support of the grapey Hollywood or of the grapey music industry, which we know, we've seen it with Diddy, with Weinstein, with all these people, you do not have institutional support and not be participating in the grape economy, okay? So, sure, there's some like B-list people who are probably not getting graped in order to get contracts, but they're still part of the deeper industry of grape, right? So if you're an independent artist, like, and you don't have that kind of support, there's the economic graping of you front loading all of your costs. You front loading everything. You planning everything. You're the artist, you're the creative, you're the business person, you're the CFO, you're the money bags. And I think the gatekeeping that has happened around the finances makes it so it's incredibly complicated for someone who doesn't have either the support of someone to help give you the time, right? Because you need time to create. So either you have the support of time or you have the support of extra finances. But there's so much art that we do not get access to because the artist does not have the time and they don't have the financial support.
Yeah, no, there's truly like I have to be in a deeply loving practice when I like go through the retrospect of all of the things that I still want to create. And every single day I pray about dancing with time versus like fighting with time. Just it's like it has to be my meditation or I just start to actually lose my mind. And I was telling Tony like the money that I used to be able to tour our last grape culture show in Portland was because the night before I left to drive to Tony's house to go to be with her before we left for Portland was I made a porn. I made a porn that my angel client purchased and that supported grape culture. Me being in grape culture in Portland. Like that is, and that's fine. Like that is my choice. That's what I do. Like this is what I'm doing. This is a part of my work. But I was like, wow, it's so interesting. Like I had to put on like a harness and have a dick hanging off of my body the night before I left to
Which
tour
is
my
so
grape
funny
show.
because in the show, I have a fake dick at
It's
one point.
true.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, again, it's not like, oh, like I didn't want to do that and I feel
No,
exploited.
but
I
I
don't
just
feel
think
that
that
at
there's a
all.
there's a deep irony.
It's a deep irony. It's I don't feel exploited. I love doing sex work. It is bringing me joy. It's bringing me healing. My clients are angels. I mean, I actually feel like maybe in like a couple months we should do a little check-in episode about how that's doing because I think it would be funny. And like truly like these clients of mine are healing me and I love when a man shows up in a respectful feminist way, and it allows me to heal, because then I carry that healing out into the world. And so for all of the feminist men listening, because I really feel like there's a lot of men who listen to Gnarly Girls, I just want to say thank you, especially for getting through all of this episode. If you got through my long-winded story, thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing to be a feminist, because it is a choice, and you help us not want to throw ourselves out a window so much. Maybe only like 20% of the time versus 100. So,
Yeah. But I think like what I'm getting at too with the whole like journey of the self-sustaining, self-supported artist is that we all recognize how important art is, and yet there isn't the government support. There are countries where there are like grants you can access, so there is some sort of like finances there. I'm guilty myself, like I, after we got used to streaming, the thought of paying for music seems absurd, which is upsetting. I don't believe that in my heart, but I'm like, pay for music. What? And I'm like, how could I possibly feel that? That's absolutely absurd. That's absolutely absurd. And it's funny, I think back to like the days of Napster when it was beginning, and Metallica and that guy, Lars or whatever, freaking out about Napster. And we all thought he was like a fucking dick. We're like, whatever, man, let's get free music. And retrospectively, I'm like, damn, that Metallica dude was correct. This has been a nightmare for artists. But also interesting in the sense that you get to hear people without gatekeeping. So it's like the price we pay with streaming is you do get to reach people, but for free. And then it has changed the value of art where we expect everything for free.
yeah. And I mean, I experienced this in burlesque world. I experienced this in comedy world. I experienced this in entrepreneurship world. There really also isn't time to rest, because time is money. Like, there isn't time to rest. My experience of doing this, and I feel as if you have a similar experience having known you, if you do not knock down mountains to create space for your self-care and your restoration practice, it just doesn't happen. Like, it really can be like a no days off situation, because the
Oh,
amount
yeah.
of things that have to be built in the background in order to even let the money come in and make the things happen, it is world building all of the time. And so I actually also want to demystify for any artist listening to this, like, it's a daily hustle, and like all of the time, like Tony said to me earlier this week something that just like really has been like vibrating in my body, like across all of my projects, like the recommitment to success and what that looks like. And I also think, like, with our spell work and our spiritual practice and our personal development as well, returning to the intention, returning to the intention, returning to the intention. I didn't even talk to you about this yet because we didn't talk yesterday, but I was like weeping my face off, just like bleeding and processing a bunch of things the other night. And I just like, I had this like, when you have the like kundalini and you like feel it all come in and like reality kind of dissolves, and then it kind of like, whatever your experience of that is. And I just was like at the altar of like, we are doing grape culture because we are offering healing. It is about healing. It is about healing. It is about healing. It's about healing. That's what it's about. That's why we're doing it. It's about healing. And that's that.
Speaking of which, we're going to New Orleans.
Yeah, we are. To the
So,
Always Lounge, which is a hot space.
so please let your New Orleans friends know. If you are in New Orleans, come. If you are in a 2-hour radius, come.
And we also don't know where we're staying yet. I actually meant to say I'm going to make a story and tag you that you should share, and then you should also make a story being like,
Yeah.
who would like to house us? Because y'all, if we pay for like a hotel or an Airbnb on top of the plane tickets, you can't get a plane ticket for less than $500. I'm pretty sure I like did my accounting. I like spent maybe $500 to $1,000 to do grape culture in Portland, and we got paid. Like, it's not even like we're not getting paid, but this is the reality of the business of art. We are funding it, we are supporting it, So if you feel like, I don't know how this is possible, well, it barely is possible. So just keep going if you're an artist yourself. And also if you would like to house us and offer us your car, we do bring reciprocity in many ways.
Yeah, totally.
Tony's coaching at the breakfast table is next level. So
No, it is where I shine.
it
It
is where
is where
she
I
shines.
shine.
I do dishes great. So
Okay, well, we have New Orleans coming up. If you'd like to host us, we are the best house guests. We will change your life. We will coach you. We will care for you. But if you know people in New Orleans, send them the link. Come to the show.
yes, setting an intention that from this episode, those things are going to happen. Love you
I
long
love
time.
that.
Check the description for all of the links. Tony also has upcoming shows, and I will link to the tickets on her website as well. Shows and workshops in LA in
Yeah,
July.
LA, DC, Boston.
Sick, sick dick. Peace. Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.